Welcome to Hacking Music. I'm your host, John Pashada. The goal of this podcast is to break off a piece of the hacking music training we use and train artists in every day to master the best of what other headliner artists have already figured out so that you can unlock your potential. Additionally, we interview world-class artists and entrepreneurs, doers and thinkers so that you can better analyze your problems, seize your opportunities, and master your decision-making and execution. Every episode is packed with training, lessons, and force multipliers that never expire. And if you're listening to this, you're missing out. If you'd like members-only training and exclusive content, you can join at hacking-music.com. Check out the show notes for a link. This episode is brought to you by the Sync Center, trusted by Fortune 50 companies, filmmakers, ad executives, and major film studios. The Sync Center is a full-service music supervision and licensing company that has managed projects for hundreds of clients, including national and global brands, agencies, and cultural events. Hi, everybody. This is John from Hacking Music, and I am really grateful that you've carved out some time to join us for this conversation. I have a friend of mine. His name is Tommy Norman, and he is the Chief Agility Officer at Ackland Avenue here in Nashville, and he's got a bunch of letters after his name, which to artists and entrepreneurs, it may kind of go over our heads, but he is an expert in project management. So as artists and entrepreneurs are now responsible for more and more of their careers and their workflow and their responsibilities, that means that an artist no longer gets to just sit on a stool and sing happy songs. They have to build a business around their music. So I invited Tommy to jump on and talk about project management as it relates to artists and entrepreneurs. So with that, Tommy, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, John. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So yeah, I mean, that's the world we live in now is that artists have more and more on their plate. So that means that they're managing projects, whether it's a 90-day project or a 6-month project, could be a 6-month tour, whatever the widget is, they're responsible for it themselves. They're kind of the CEO and project manager for their companies. So how would you kind of start that conversation for an artist to begin to think a little bit like a project manager?
Sure. So anything you're doing, is this from the smallest to most complex is a project, is a process, is a system. And so how that system flows and how you feed work into that system determines on how good a system it is. So, one idea we talked about is breaking big things down into small things. So just being good at taking, any kind of thing of large size and breaking it down into small steps, small little goals to get to the larger goal. And then the next thing would be is to understand the processes of what it goes to, whether you're recording an album, whether you're working on songwriting or any of these things, planning out a tour. All those things take, some type of process to go through and mapping that out. And I'm a big fan of visualizing it. And I know you guys talk about Kanban a lot, and I love Kanban boards. The idea that, sticky notes, virtual ones on that, I have boxes and boxes. I should buy stock in the sticky note company. 3M, absolutely. But just getting that, all this work is, before it actually results in the tangible thing, an album or whatever it is knowledge work. It's in your head. It's artistry work. Getting it out of your head and onto something visual. The idea of a Kanban board is, of course, creating swim lanes for this is the process. I do this first, then I do this, then I do this, then I do that. And taking something that's a piece of value, that would be your sticky card or a task, and tracking it across those things. Mm-hmm. Just the art of visualizing that brings in so much. It changes your whole way of thinking about it. You can see immediately problems. I've got too many things going on, or things are getting stuck here, or I don't have enough stuff getting to the done lane, because the done lane should be a value lane. Now I have a thing that's bringing me in some type of value.
And let's unpack that Kanban board that you referenced there. I mean, we both use them, but for our listeners who maybe are kind of improvise this process for themselves, how would
Sure.
you, we think of it of to do, doing, and done, kind of the three steps.
Right.
It is, I know that's kind of oversimplifying it, but how would you explain Kanban to a
It
newbie?
It could be as simple as that. Kanban obviously has its roots in Toyota. It came from manufacturing, and then a lot of people adopted it to software, product development, any kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it can be just as simple as to do, doing, and done. But if you think about it, like when I worked with Reach Records in Atlanta, when I worked at Linkit, they wanted to visualize their workflow for for creating albums. And so there is a process to that. It goes through steps. And to do, doing, and done, you can do, and you see what's working there, but the work that's in there gets a little hidden because all that work is different work. It could be all sorts of different things. So a more advanced step in a Kanban board for them was to say, all right, what's the first thing we do? All right, we bring in the artist and we start doing, songwriting sessions, and then we start tracking, and then we do, mixing, and then we do mastering, and then we do, send it out of course, we don't make CDs anymore. Some people do, I guess, but we send it out wherever it goes to, whatever packaging it needs to happen. And then we get it out on the shelves. And then there's maybe some marketing that goes along with that. Those are steps. Those are very, definable steps. So I can take, let's say an album or a song or a single or whatever, and I can see it flow through those things. Yeah. Now, if I just made those a bunch of tasks on a to-do, doing, and done, I would move the first one into progress. But I would look at that and say, oh, I can see I've got one thing in progress, but what is it? I have to kind of look at the card and see what it is. But if I said, here's the single, man, I got this great song. And man, if I get it out there, I know the world's going to love it. Okay. What's it going to take to get out there? All right. Well, we got to do the songwriting. We got to chart it. We got to do whatever. We got to bring in session players. We got to lay down the tracks for it. We got to mix it. And I can watch it in each one of those lanes. Yeah. And what they were doing as a record label is saying, all right, where are we? We've got 5, albums we're working on right now. Where are we on with the 10 tracks for this one? These are being mixed. These are this, these are that. They could see where those individual items, because the individual item is a value item rather than a task.
Right.
A Kanban board is really good at taking the valuable thing and showing you where it is in the process. Mm-hmm. So again, the valuable thing is that record, is that release, that single. Where is it in this? So that's kind of an advanced one. To do, doing, and done is great because it's still a good visualization. But if you do something like a little bit more of mapping out the process, they call that a value stream map in the geeky world of Lean.
Is that the same thing as a swim lane?
Well, a value stream map is kind of just basically, I would probably, if I sat down with somebody, I would say, all right, where do you go? There's this idea of concept to cash and lean. I have an idea. Okay. What does it take to make money off of that? Because this is a business, and then we say, oh, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this. And we map it all the way out. And they just make little boxes of that. And then those boxes can result into a swim lane or multiple swim lanes, or they might be combined into one, depending on how complex or how visible you need to be into something. And the lane should be an action. And something that can be a lane could be an action. It can be when something moves physically from one place to another, or digitally, or a different person or entity takes it on. So like, tracking, is one thing, but then the mixing might be a different person. Or it might even go someplace that different. Might take the masters and send it off to someplace else. Right. So that would be a lane. I'd want to know that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a good rule of thumb for what the lanes are. And again, you can geek out as much as possible. You don't have to. Just basically map out the process first, make the lanes, and track the valuable thing across the lanes. And the idea is that when you get all the way to the right, that's the thing that should be making you value. It should be something you can now go sell, put out there, whatever that item is. Yeah. It could be a booked gig. It could be the next release, whatever the thing is you're trying to track.
Yeah. And that's what we call done.
Okay. If it doesn't make dollars, it don't make sense.
Yeah. That's interesting, Tommy. How do you, as artists are responsible for chunkier projects, we talked about stretch goals a little bit ago. How do you break down those chunky projects into actionable, small, digestible tasks.
It's, with software, it's a little bit easier because I have an end user that I'm going to, and I know what problem I'm trying to solve for them. With art, I can see that being a lot harder. I'm trying to make a piece of art that will be appealing to my audience. But you probably have goals as far as an artist yourself. Let's think of it that way. What is my goal as an artist myself? Do I want to be the next Garth Brooks? Do I want to be the next Jack Pearson? Maybe not everybody, knows me, but they've heard me on every record that's, come out of Nashville. What you want to be a touring musician? What is that goal that you want to get there? I want to get a hit single.
Yeah.
Think of that, and I think
end state. Your Super
that's my vision. My vision is I want to play the Super Bowl halftime show, whatever it is. Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic. And that's probably, maybe years away, depending on, things that go on. Right. And then challenge yourself. What is a little bit still of a stretch goal? That's the big vision, but what's another stretch, thing that I can challenge myself to do? So let's say I want to make a living as a session player. I want to be one of the top session players in Nashville. That's a lofty goal. But I want to do that. I want to be making this amount of money and I want to be playing this many sessions, and I want to appear on this many hit records that are, a hit record being defined as whatever you want to say, gold records, that's a measurable thing. Okay. So what do I need to start? I just moved to Nashville. I haven't done any session work. So I want to book 2 sessions a month. That's going to be my challenge. I want to go 6 months. And every month of those, that 6 months, I want to have a 6-month run of 2 sessions a month. So that's my challenge to myself. And then you think about, all right, what is my current condition? Well, my current condition is I don't have any sessions. I just got here. Don't know anybody. Don't have any connections yet. So what's one step towards getting a session a month? Maybe I get 2 sessions. Maybe I start with 1 session. Maybe I start with playing out, making some connections, whatever that thing is. And I want, the next target condition I want to get. It's not an activity. It is a goal. So let's say it's 1 session. I want to do 1 session a month. Then you ask yourself, what are the obstacles right now for me getting there? I don't know enough people. I don't have, maybe my skills aren't up in it. Maybe I came into that. A lot of people come to Nashville and go, I'm a great player. And they come to Nashville and you are now a mediocre player. Yeah. That's been my experience. I go to Milwaukee. I'm a pretty good player in Milwaukee. I don't even touch the people in Nashville. So whatever that is, that obstacle you find that's in there. And then you brainstorm. What am I going to do to try to reach that target condition? And then you do experiments and you see, and you check in with yourself every so often.
So I hear you saying there's the obstacle and then there's the solution to that obstacle.
The experiment. We think it's a solution.
Okay.
It's always an experiment.
We're assuming this is going to be the solution, but we're going to test it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I should be able to do this thing, overcome this obstacle, and get 1 step closer to my target condition.
Gotcha. So it's the idea of the obstacle is the way, the Stoic idea.
Absolutely. In fact, I love that phrase. I almost got that phrase tattooed on my arm because I love it so much.
So you have this come to Jesus meeting to where you're whiteboarding. You're saying, okay, here's the goal. Here's our Super Bowl of what we want to do. Top guy. Then you set a stretch goal of 2 a month. And then you said the obstacle is, how do I get to that 2 a month? And then you start plugging in that obstacles with what you think are solutions.
Sure. And you're checking in every so often. Absolutely.
Okay.
And a good visualization would be good. So in again, the nerdy lean world of this, they actually have what they call kata boards, which is you say, all right, here's where I am at week 1. Okay. Here's all the metrics I have. How many sessions have I done? I've done 0 sessions. How many songwriting sessions have I done? I've done 0. Whatever it is, you start with something of here's where I am, my current condition. My next target condition is I want, let's say getting a session is a little out of, maybe that's a big stretch goal. So maybe I just want to do 5 jams, because there's a lot of local jams, a lot of how I know a lot of local people have kind of connected. I want to do 5 jams, every week. And I want to do, book 1 songwriting session with somebody.
Okay.
And so, all right, that's my target condition. Right now I have 0. I've done 0 jams or anything. All right. So then you set a cadence for yourself, a week, every 2 weeks, whatever it is. And you kind of sit down with yourself and you walk yourself. They have these actually in lean, they actually have these little cards. And usually you have a coach who walks through you this, but you can do it yourself saying, all right, what was my what was my target condition? What was my, current condition? What is it right now? Did I reach my target condition? You might go, no, I didn't get there. Okay. Why not? Well, I didn't have enough time to go to all those jam sessions, or I didn't know where they were, or I couldn't find enough people who wanted to write with me. Okay. So what did you learn? You know, you know, and I learned this. All right. And so then what's your next experiment?
Yeah.
And you just keep iterating through that. And it's just a way. And I know this will, a lot of artist people who are very passionate in art and think that way. This sounds like the most benign way of approaching it. Oh, that's Julia. But this is the business side. It is. And it's just kind of, am I on track? Am I doing the right things? Knowing when, all right, this isn't working. And let's, don't do sunk cost. That's Vegas, odds, putting good money after bad. If this isn't working, try something else and experiment, and really measuring yourself of, if I do this, I expect this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great way to kind of keep yourself of momentum.
Yeah.
Momentum that's also kind of judged by data and results.
Yeah. A lot of what we're talking about here and what we talked about in the Hacking Music book is testing assumptions,
mm-hmm.
making a small enough assumption about something, and then see if the dogs eat the dog food.
Yep.
How small? I mean, is that a weekly test, a monthly test? How do you right size that to where it's not too small and not too 60 days out?
I'm a big fan of weekly. Just, it's a nice bookend that we've had for forever. Things happen in a weekly cycle. So I think, getting up on whatever day starts your week, when you're an artist, maybe Monday is not your start, but, and saying, all right, what are my goals? What are my to-dos? Go and look at your Kanban. What are anything I have to actually do? Tasks I have to do. Yeah. What are things, and some of those tasks should be being fed from this process we talked about, this improvement kata thing of these experiments. All right, what does that experiment mean? All right, I need to find out, where are all the jams? Get a list of jams, put that on the wall. All right, then target, map them out to what nights I'm off from work, which jams I can go to. This one. All right, I'm going to go to those jams, and just kind of, setting those things up for yourself, and then revisiting it 2 weeks. If you wait too long, you're getting lagging indicators.
Yeah.
To me, a week or 2 weeks seems a good cycle.
Right. Something that I love about this process is that it turns it into a game. When you put it on the wall, it kind of gamifies it, and you're like,
sure.
Oh shit, we did this, and this. What if we do this, and that? Maybe it'll go, twice as fast. How much of the gamification? Because I think for artists, it's important to not lose them and to make their eyes glaze over and turn it into a spreadsheet. How have you seen gamification keep this fun?
Sure. So, a lot of times it's in the visualization of it. I've been talking about this very mechanical, business way and software development way of lanes and things like that, boards. You could visualize this however you want to, take a big whiteboard or, your wall, put the vision up in the top right corner. That's where I want to get.
Yep.
And put some measurable things in that. Play Madison Square Gardens, have this many albums, how many, that's a measurable thing. You can say, that's what I want. And then somewhere and say, but that's maybe years off. This is where I want to be. Like you said, 60, 90 days. That's where I want to be. All right. Where am I at right now? That's your lower left-hand corner. Then start kind of mapping out. How are you getting there? Every week, check in. How are you getting there? Mm-hmm. And to make it kind of fun, like, I've used kata for weight loss.
Right.
My goal is, I used to pretty thin dude. I used to be a size 30. Now that wasn't my goal. That's a little, I want to get back to my size 32. That's my goal. Right. And so how do I get there? And so I mapped out, and I kind of gave myself points.
Hmm.
I didn't, I love Coca-Cola and I drink, if you gave me the day, I would drink a 6-pack. I only drank one Coke a day. I get X number of points. I drink 0 Coke today. I drank this much water. I walked for a mile. I did a 20-minute exercise routine. I got points for that. And I kind of mapped it to kind of see. And also you have to be ready for, setbacks, and understand that as long as I keep the majority of my things, keep making me steps forward, that's where I'm going. And the other thing I would do is I would reward myself.
Yeah.
If I can get to this point, if I can get this target condition, I will allow myself this, and like in business, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll say, hey, if we can get to this point, you're going to get a bonus or you're going to get a that, you can tie it to a monetary thing. I've often done it where if I can get there, I'll buy myself a guitar, this nice little thing back here. And I've got a couple over there, little incentives for that. That might speak a little bit more to a musician. I'll get this pedal. I'll do this thing. So I absolutely
that's the end state of rewarding yourself when you hit the end state. How do you do rewards in between, a big part of what we do is celebrate the wins.
Sure.
Because that means we're communicating, we're aligned, we're executing. So when we celebrate a win, that means we've done a lot of things right already. So
sure.
Every week, every 2 weeks, every month, how do you?
I'm a big fan of weekly. Now it may be,
rewards as well.
It depends, if rewards are going to be monetary, you also have to be careful of that. I don't want to reward myself and set myself back financially or something like that. But because that was the same thing. Like, when I was doing it with food, I can't say, oh, I've reached this great weight loss goal, so now I'm going to go out and drink a bunch of Cokes and eat a quarter. I have now kind of negated my thing. But I think, to celebrate wins. So let's take the example of if I said, I just came to town, I don't know anyone, I want to be this great session artist. The first thing I need to do is I just need to participate next number of jams. And that's a process. It's not an outcome. It's a process thing. I need to go to 5 jams, this week. Okay. Did I go to 5 jams this week? And you can track it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, check it, make a little chart, whatever way visually kind of helps you in it. And then celebrate that, wow. And then, how many connections did I make from that? And from that, did I get any songwriting sessions? Hey, did I make some connections of people that I'm actually going to go and talk to? And then, how did any of that result into session work? Get called in for a session. So, these are all just things that you can, again, when you talk about target condition, it's all this data about how many of these am I doing now? I'm doing 0 of them, right? I haven't done any jams. I haven't done any songwriting sessions. I haven't done any, session work. I haven't played any gigs. Those are all 0s. And then set some goals for different ones of those. And then again, some of them will be easy. Like the only thing preventing you from going to a jam is you. That's just, so that's an easy process one. Now, some of the ones you don't have control over, like, people inviting me to go and do a songwriting session or me asking them to do that is dependent on someone else. But if you believe the experiment is, if I go out and I am in these jams and they see, that I'm a good player and I'm a creative player and I know when to lay in and lay out and do all that kind of stuff, that my theory in my experiment is if I do that enough, that people will ask me, or people I ask will be more enlightened to do that. Right. And so there may be little things like, well, one of my obstacles is, I don't have anything to give. Maybe I got to get business cards. So now I can set a thing of, I'm going to buy 100 business cards and I'm going to make sure in 2 weeks, I have 0. I'm going to hand them out like candy. Right. And then how many of those respond? So it's just little things like that. Try something. Did that work? Yeah. Was that juice worth the squeeze? And if it was, celebrate it. If it wasn't, you might spend a couple of time experimenting a couple of different ways, poke at the problem a couple of different ones. And then you might have to say, all right, maybe that's not the thing I need to be doing.
Right.
And that's hard. How much do you continue, putting, backing the wrong horse for a while? Sometimes it's the right horse, but I just haven't found the right way to do it. Or I just need to find another way. And you can always revisit something. Try and experiment a couple of different ways. If it's not working, put it to a side because it can get discouraging if you keep doing something and it doesn't move.
Yeah.
Put that to the side. That obstacle will still be there tomorrow. Take another one.
Yeah.
Now start experimenting on this obstacle and see what it goes. And if it moves, maybe that's one. Or if it gets to a certain point and it starts stalling, revisit the other one or bring up another one.
Yeah. So the obstacles are fluid and moving. They're not set in stone necessarily.
Absolutely. Especially with, when you think about trying to make it as an artist, some of that is your artistry itself. Some of it's just luck. A lot of it's just hustle. Yeah. Like a lot of people I know that I have met through jams and kind of watch them come into town brand spanking new and go from just going out the jams, doing some sessions with people and then making their own thing. And now they're playing pretty regularly and have albums out and have getting awards and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. A certain a high percent of it just hustle,
right? Doing
stuff, making the most of your time and doing those types of things. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to what we started, which is, okay, if you're going to be a lot of that hustle, make sure you're tracking it, making sure you're keeping on top of it. You're not doing too many things at once. That's another thing you could easily do is try to put your too many irons in the fire all at once.
Yeah. How speaking of that, kind of the works in progress, I think we call them whips in the book. What's the right amount there? I mean, we tend to be about 3.
Yeah. I mean,
3. What have you seen? What spreads you too thin?
In the software environment world, with my teams, and I have very good, well-balanced teams, you go 3 to 4, about 3 to 4 things you can think of in your head at any given time easily and switch between them without too much thing.
Nothing gets started until those are complete.
They should be. Now, again, you may get into something and realize it is no longer valuable. So that's a big thing in the software world. If I'm, in the middle of what they call sprints, which are time box kind of, efforts, right. I'm in the middle of that and I'm working on a feature and the business people go, you know what? This isn't shaping up. It's not the thing. I don't think it's going to attract users. I don't think it's going to do what we want to, don't complete it just to complete it. Right. You shouldn't feel bad about abandoning bad things. And sometimes it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Just it isn't right now. And if it's a good enough idea, it'll come back. Mm-hmm. So if they're small enough, you can knock them out quickly and learn, very quickly from it so that there's not a lot of wasted time and investment into something. That's again, so you talked about how long you take. To me, spending, more than a week on something that is not being fruitful is waste to me. That's why I like a week. A weekly cadence is, all right, I spent a couple of days on this. It didn't move the needle the way I thought it would be. So let's try something else. Maybe, so a lot of times what I'll have is an archive at the end of my board. So there's a done lane, but kind of past done in this limbo is things that came off the board for an unnatural reason. And some could be just.
What do you mean by unnatural? Like
it didn't get to done. Getting to done is the ultimate thing. That is the ultimate lane to get to. Done is money or value or whatever it is.
That's a win.
It may be something halfway through. I just decided to stop. Maybe it would depended on somebody else. I was writing a song with another songwriter and they said no, and they own the rights. I can't do anything about that. And I like to kind of put those off and I like to classify, to know and either give them different lanes or inside that lane, the reason why I got abandoned. Mm-hmm. And then every now and then it's good to go and kind of open the trash up again and go and say, why did these things get abandoned? Do I keep seeing the similar things? Am I making the same mistake over and over again? Because that is waste. When you talk about lean is all about removing as much waste out of the system as possible without affecting quality. So if things keep getting halfway done and I abandon them and they go into the trash pile, it's very good to kind of open up that trash and go, why did this happen? And you might find a little nugget of there. If you go, oh, I forgot that was in there. And you know what? The thing that made that something I had to stop is now gone.
Right.
I want to revisit that, or at least looking at that thing and being smart about, I see myself repeating this mistake over and over again. And you can now visualize. That's the other great thing about having a Kanban board. You can visualize it. And if you did it with something digital, and I know that might be a leap for some people, that may be too much, but if you did it digitally, I can also know how much time I wasted on that card. I know how long it was in progress. So I can say, man, I wasted days. Each of these cards that was done because I pursued the wrong thing, or I worked with the wrong, collaborator.
Yeah.
And I keep going and doing that over and over and over again. And I've wasted all this time doing that. Why do I do that?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that anymore because it's wasting my time. Let me figure that out. And that should be, that feeds back into my system of, I now want to make better decisions.
Right.
You are trying to maximize value and learning from the system.
Yeah. I love that. And that's something we talk about, and Achilles heel for artists is this thing called avoidance. They want to do what they want to do, and they avoid the structural business stuff that maybe is less sexy, but they need to be doing that. So how do you, if we do like an after action review or a postmortem, a lot of artists dread that because they feel like they failed, or they didn't hit a home run. How do you do a review, after action review, I think it's called, in a way that is not like, oh, we fucked up, let's we're bad people. It's like, how do you learn from that without beating yourself up?
Sure. So, in the software world, in Scrum, we call that a retrospective. Every couple of weeks we sit down and we go, what's going well and what can be better? And looking at those items, and if something's going well, can I do more of it? Can I capitalize on it? Can I expand what's going well and get more value out of it? And then what things that could have gone better is paying it some respect. The best learning comes from failure. It just does. People who have only been successful, there's probably a majority of that is luck more than anything else. And luck's not necessarily bad, but it's not very repeatable.
Right.
And I do see artists, a lot of artists kind of depend on luck. I'm going to come to Nashville and I'm going to go out there and sing, and there's going to be somebody in the crowd, and they're going to come from a big company, and from BMI, and they're going to sign me. And I'm like, dude, that very, very rarely happens. It is the hustle. Now, when it does happen, it's because that person hustled to make that opportunity. When that luck did happen and that opportunity did come there, there's that iceberg of, you're only seeing the tip thing. Yeah. That guy with the big cigar coming in and going, oh, I love your stuff, I'm going to sign you to a big, contract. Now I'm singing Boston songs. The contract.
You've earned it.
The hustle got you there. You were in that room. You were in that session. You were in that room playing that thing because of all the hustle you did. So respect the hustle, and respect, okay, what did I learn from this? What did I learn? I now know not to do that. And I will now not waste my time doing that thing that way anymore. I either won't do that thing because it's wasteful and it's not bringing me value, or I will do it a different way that will be more valuable. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to aim yourself. And like you said, it's hard as an artist because, this is not code. This is not some product. And I'm not a hired gun. Like when I'm a developer and I'm hired to build something for somebody else, if somebody doesn't like it at the end, I still got paid. And that wasn't, it was that guy's idea, not mine. But now this is mine. This is my heart and soul I poured into this song or into this, a piece of music or whatever it is. And to have it not be successful feels like a slight towards my soul. And so I get it. But but you got to take that away a little bit, and you have to go, all right, I still believe in this song. I just need to get it out more. All right. So what's the obstacle of me getting that out more? I need to do this. I need to do that. Okay. Then let's do some experiments. I'm going to put it on YouTube. All right. Put it on YouTube. How many hits are you getting? I'm going to advertise it here. I'm going to do that. Do those things and measure with data. That's a good thing is data, the good and bad thing about data is it doesn't care about your feelings.
Right.
Facts, feelings are not facts. And so you can kind of just look at the data and let it lead you a little bit, and don't let your heart because sometimes I'll see people bang their head against a wall because their heart is telling them to do it. And there's no data, no logic backing it up. And again, the 20th time you bang your head on that wall, it cracks and something happens. And some people will say, oh, that's persistence. And that's what they think I mean by hustle and things like that. And I'm like, maybe so, but that was probably more luck. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to be depending on banging your head for a while for that next piece of luck to happen, where this data is now driving you to, let's bang our head on the wall that is the most likely to return something. Mm-hmm. And that's just, it takes experimentation.
Yeah. So the testing and the data, that gives you a mechanism to feed the winners and starve the things that aren't yielding results. Right. You put a bullet in, or you shelve them, you take them off the board.
Yeah. And one thing to add in here, to a caveat I will put on there. So, this is a business, so it is about making money, but you also hear about, I don't want to lose my soul in doing it. And that's not just about, artistry. When I work for a company, I want to work for a company that has a certain way of doing things. And I've worked at companies where there's a decision we could have made to make more money, but I wouldn't have liked what it did to us as a company. I wouldn't like how I got that money. I wouldn't feel right when I got there. And I'd rather have a little less money and have done the thing, whether you call it integrity, whether you call it whatever that thing is. Mm-hmm. But also, I got to pay the bills. I got 5 kids, and integrity and good intentions and learning don't pay, for college and light bills and things like that. Yeah. But they are things that you can take and feed into your next idea and your next step and learn from that. So I do think that as an artist, when you talk about that vision, you should also have some principles and values around it. I won't do this and I won't do that. Mm-hmm. These are the things I'm willing to do. These are things I'm not willing to do. I will not sell my, song to Pepsi or whatever, and again, there's what you'll do when you're fat and happy, and there's what you do when you're lean, but there, just find what those things are and stay true to yourself. And then inside that, measure it appropriately, because then it is about the system and the process in which you go to get that.
Yeah. I love that. So Tommy, question for you. In the music world, there's still artists who will spend a massive amount of time on a project, call it a year, 2 years, whatever. And then there's people that will just ship things out every other week, right? And so I believe that's called waterfall. It's making sure everything's perfect. Yeah. I think of like a Fleetwood Mac or a Steely Dan spending 3 years in the studio making the perfect recording, and then the lean person who's shipping things often.
Right.
And I don't want to cast, I think there's a time for slow marathons and there's a time for, faster sprints. But what do you say to the person who's overthinking and really stuck in waterfall, perfectionism, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah.
How do you kill that perfectionism thing that stops people from shipping?
Perfection is the enemy of good enough. And it's about, there's this idea of cost of delay in software development. And that's true. It's very true. I know in the music industry too, like, I get this album out and it gets me a certain, following and things like that. If I wait too long and that peters off, the next one comes out, the bump is a little lower and a little lower and a little lower. So, time to market is still important even in this type of world. But it is hard because, you do, and it depends on your work. Like Steely Dan, that was their work. That's what they did, and it's hard to use them as an example because Steely Dan, was fairly successful at it. But there's probably 20 other, or not even 20. There's probably 2,000 prog rock bands who tried to do that, who did not make it. That's the thing, is that you kind of look at the one group that said, all right, that's the formula for success. For them, it was. Yes. And again, like we said, it was probably a little bit of the formula for success and a little bit of luck, a little bit of time, just the timing of when something happened. And you don't, because you've never heard of those other 2,000 bands, you don't know that necessarily wasn't everybody's things for success. And so the thing is that if you spent 2 years working on your perfect prog rock album, again, you're burning money. You're not making any money on that thing. And then when you release it, that's when you find out if anybody cares or not.
Yeah.
And if you find out 2 years, you have now, that is time and opportunity missed and money spent that I can't get back. And so releasing,
you could have tested it a dozen times in between that 2-year cycle.
Oh yeah.
And learned a dozen significant lessons in the process.
And again, I am talking again as a casual observer of this industry. But the things I've noticed is like I was just listening to a thing from Rick Beato the other day. I love Rick Beato. I don't know if you follow him, the guy from Atlanta. Yeah. And one of my favorite bands, Muddy Magnolias, he brought up a demo of a song they had done for them that never got out, never went anywhere. And he talked about how they did this demo and it was great, but then they took it to producers and they recut it multiple times and did all this. And I'm like, why didn't you just go with that thing?
Yeah.
That thing right there was great. Yeah. And it wasn't as slickly produced as maybe some of the other stuff, but it was a great song and it could have, you could have run with that better. And again, some of that has nothing to do with them, but it, if they had sat on that song for too long and missed the opportunity, take the gig, I get not wanting to play the crappy gigs, but it's been the thing of, when I have been a player and I'm playing out, I played the wait staff, and you got to do that. If you got to go through a couple of those, not even a couple of, you got through a lot of those. If you want to play to the thousands, tens of thousands of people, you just have to. And if you're waiting for the perfect thing and not taking advantage of the small wins in there, you don't see that those people who are already there, again, you're seeing the iceberg. You're seeing where they're at. You haven't seen all the stuff that went there. There are a couple of ones who get to skip the iceberg. The few, that's what I don't like about, and not casting disparations on things like a American Idol or anything like that, that people think I go and I can, at the very early part of my career, get a jump start. I get to jump ahead of the line.
Right.
That does happen every now and then, but it is so rare. It is a lot of people of hustle, doing the work, taking work when you can, playing the gigs. There's so many times where I'm like, I don't want to play that music. I don't want to play a wedding. I don't want to do that. And then I learned a shit from doing that. Sorry. I don't know if I can say bad words on this, but I learned a lot from doing those things. And the same thing, in software development, my failures have been the things that have taught me the most in that. Mm-hmm. And I learned each little time of doing something. And if I waited too long for the perfect thing, I would have missed so many more opportunities. Yeah. So I 100% agree. And again, it's hard with art because you do want to release that perfect song. You do want to release that perfect single, or you do want to get to that perfect state of whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. But there are little steps to get there. So, I 100% agree of that's why that's the idea of there's the vision, and that is where I want to get. But I know that is, I have to go through these steps to get there. Yeah. Doing weekly little progress. Sometimes it's just a process thing. I don't have the outcome yet, but I can do the things that I think will get me there. Mm-hmm. Go to this many jams, participate in this many things, go and see other artists, for God's sakes, and network and do those things. Yeah. I know it's like you said, it's not the sexy thing, like, what is that Todd Snyder song? Nobody wants to talk about distribution. Well, somebody's got to talk about it eventually. It's going to happen sometime. And if you're one of these artists in today's world where so much of that could be you, and I think it's great because now you can own it. In the past, you got a record deal, but you had very little sway in how things went and stuff like that. Your career was kind of in the hands of a lot of other people. You can do a lot of this now on your own with the world as it is.
Yeah.
And you may not have the money of a record label to sit on something for a long time and make that kind of investment. So you have to make the little small ones.
Mm-hmm. I love it. This is great, Tommy. I could talk about this all day. And another question for you. You talk about digital tools and paper tools. Mm-hmm. I've tried digital tools. they're great for collaborative distributed teams, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, 'cause we're in different countries, but something happens when it's on a sticky note that I can't put my fingers on, but I absolutely love it. What have you seen? I know you've used everything out there. Why is paper special?
It's just tangible. It's real. When you see something on a screen, it's not real. We are taking a conceptual thing. It's a conceptual abstract idea.
Yeah.
And just our bodies are wired for the physical thing. And so, taking that sticky note and moving it to done, like physically peeling it off and sticking it down.
Yeah.
It's tactile, it's primal,
Yeah.
to get a little, philosophical about it, but it is. And, if
It
you are
sounds
working,
strange even talking about it because it's a sticky note, but when you've busted your ass for months, weeks, whatever it is, I mean, it's like something weird happens there. Like even cleaning off a board of a project you've done where you've got 40 or 50 items and done. It's
Mhm.
like, holy crap, look what we just did.
Right. It's just the physical part of it, it's, I don't know the term either. Then there's probably smarter people out there who could put what it is, but it is definitely a thing of that. I could, my thing is always start with a physical board. Now, I mostly work with really big companies, and so I can't go to Deloitte and say, hey, put up a thing on your wall. They're like, which wall? We're in 20 countries.
Yeah.
So a lot of places have to start digital. But if you're an artist by yourself and this is only for you, and like you said, usually if I'm an artist at heart and I'm not a business person at heart, find the medium that works for you, that speaks to you.
Mhm.
I'm going to do a deep cut. If Lucy Fell, Sarah Jessica Parker is a movie she was in, and she had the wall, they painted every month they would paint the calendar on the wall.
Yeah.
And they would mark things off on the calendar, stuff like that. And then they would paint over it. Deep cut. If anybody gets that, you're a nerd like me. But it was this thing of, like you said, clearing the board, marking something off, walking by it every day. That's the thing you don't get with the digital thing, is walking by it every day. And it's good and bad, because it will. It's like, I'm still not done.
Yeah.
Here's that sticky. I'm still here. And but it's good. You need that kind of, like you said, that avoidance. I want to do the thing that's fun. I want to go and jam. I want to go play. I want to, go sing with my buddies, but I got to practice, but I got to do the work. I got to go fill out my paperwork for whatever thing, I got to do this thing. That's the work too.
Yeah.
And the business side of it. And it's not sexy, you're right, but it is the thing that you do enough of that. I have this friend, and I won't name drop her, even though it's a compliment to her, but just, not, but I saw her come in, and do the jams and things like that. And she had a good talent. Was it, a crazy thing that made me stop and go, oh my God? No, but a very good talent. But what she had is hustle.
Yeah.
Oh my God. She was at every jam. She was, playing everywhere she could. She was on social media like nobody's business. And she has gotten, for that kind of stage of artist she's at, she's gotten some good success and some renown. A lot of because of that hustle. Right. And watching her take, to do the work. So that's the thing, that if you can use the physical one, that's going to kind of remind you of, I got to do this work, and like you said, but then when you're done with it, when you get to move it over.
Yeah. And
if it also limits you, because you don't, I don't have this done, but I'm going to start something else, because it's fun starting things.
Yes.
There's actually a kick you get when you start things
that
you lose when the thing's been sitting there for a while. Yes. And then you gain it when it gets done. So try to keep that high from starting to done as short as possible. The more things you're on your board, the longer it sits there, and the longer you're in that lull of in progress work, which is not fun.
Yeah. I love it.
So absolutely.
This is good stuff, Tommy. Thank you so much for jumping on and talking about this. I mean,
sure.
It's really important as artists are building their platform under their music. These are the things that strengthen, support, and sell the widget, the music, the sexy thing. But this is the stuff that turns passion into careers. So we think it's really important. And I know you and your team at Ackland, you guys eat this every day for lunch. So thanks again for coming on and talking about this project management, agile for artists. Anything else you want to share out, Tommy?
It just, if anybody's listening to this and liked what I was talking about, they can find me on LinkedIn, Tommy Norman on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. I love to talk about this stuff and anything I can do to help. I'm a big supporter of local artists.
Mm-hmm.
I've done things like when I do presentations and I have a break, I try to play local artists and put their name up on the slide to say, you're listening to so-and-so. Just whatever I can do, I'm not going to be a rock star. I gave that, I tried that for, a little while, a long time, but I wanted to help anybody in their next step. So if any of this thing I talked about resonated with anybody who wants to know more, find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, and I'd be glad to help you out.
We'll add those links in the show notes as well. Tommy, Norman, thank you again for jumping on and talking about Agile, Scrum, project management goodness. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, John, for having me.
Absolutely.